Welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe for more scary stories. Or I will come for you. I'd like to thank Kenny Scott and Eric Spencer for joining the Curator's Disciples. Your viewership is very much appreciated. If anyone would like early access to my latest stories and an ad-free listening experience, consider becoming one of the Curator's Disciples. The link is in the description below. Finally, a reminder that all stories are available on my podcast. The Curator, Dark Web Horror Anthology, is available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Without further ado, today's story, See You in the Snow, by the Curator. My name does not matter anymore. The surgeons took my fingerprints, along with the black fingers. They cauterized the stumps with silver nitrate that smelled like burnt pennies. The Belarusians never booked me. There was no paperwork, no record that Marek Nowak ever crossed their border. Interpol calls me Subject V19 in the redacted files, the ones with entire paragraphs blacked out and footnotes that simply read classified, ongoing. But 6 months ago, I still had a name, Marek Nowak, 38, senior system admin for a mid-tier bank in Warsaw. I was divorced. I had one daughter I only saw on Sundays, when I would drive to the ex's apartment block in Praga with a plastic bag of princess stickers and a heart that felt like wet cardboard. I had a mortgage that bled me $1,800 a month, a beer gut that strained every shirt button, and a laugh that sounded like a smoker's cough, even though I quit in 2019. People who knew me would tell you I was harmless. I was the kind of guy who apologized to chairs when he bumped into them. I cried at the end of Homeward Bound every single time, hiding the tears behind a tissue because Zosia was watching. I spent my evenings on Reddit arguing about whether certain rifles were overrated, microwaving pierogi because cooking for one felt pathetic, and scrolling through old photos of our family trip to Masury in 2018 until the screen blurred. I was not a soldier. I was not a survivalist. I did mandatory military service in 2006 and spent the whole year cleaning toilets in Sieltsi with a toothbrush because some sergeant thought it built character. My only wilderness experience was a drunken scouting camp when I was 12, where I got lost for 40 minutes in a pine thicket, pissed myself crying, and was found by a counselor who smelled of vodka and pity. My ex-wife, Cassia, used to say the most dangerous thing about me was my cholesterol. She said it while packing boxes the night she left. I was running from all of that, really. It was December 2024. My daughter Zosia had just turned 11 and asked why Daddy did not live with her anymore. Her voice was small over the phone, like she already knew the answer would hurt. My boss had restructured my team, and the new 28-year-old manager, some kid named Kuba with a man bun and a standing desk, kept calling me Pops in meetings, smiling like it was a joke we were both in on. Christmas was coming, and I had exactly $2,400 in my savings account, a fridge full of expired yogurt, and a stack of overdue bills that I hid under the kettle so I wouldn't have to look at them. So I did what sad Central European men do. I bought a €48 Ryanair ticket to Minsk because Belarus was the only place in Europe my visa still worked without questions. There were no Schengen overstay flags, no awkward interviews at the consulate. I told myself I'd drink cheap vodka, walk around some Soviet architecture, take moody black and white photos for Instagram that made me look deep, and come home with stories that made me sound interesting for once. I was lonely, broke, and just self-aware enough to hate myself for it. That's the kind of prey they look for, not the strong ones, not the fighters. They look for the ones who already feel half dead inside, the ones who won't be missed for days, whose phones will sit silent while their bosses assume they're hungover and their ex-wives assume they're sulking. I landed on a Thursday. I took the Marshrutka into the city past endless gray panel blocks and billboards for tractors no one could afford. I checked into a hostel called Sputnik that smelled of old socks, borscht, and the particular despair of backpackers who'd run out of money in the wrong country. The dorm had 8 bunks, peeling linoleum, and a single window that looked out on a courtyard where babushkas beat rugs like they had personal grudges. Only 3 bunks were occupied. 2 Ukrainian girls traveling together on student visas, one with dyed purple streaks and a nervous laugh. The other quieter, short black hair, a pale crescent scar on her left collarbone shaped like a waxing moon, and a Romanian theology student named Andrei who kept trying to convert everyone to Orthodox Christianity over instant coffee, quoting Revelation like it was small talk. That night, the hostel bar had half-price vodka. It was cloudy stuff that tasted like nail polish remover and regret. A tall American in a Canada Goose parka and perfect teeth bought a round for the whole table. He said his name was Trent, that he was in crypto, that he came to Minsk every winter for experiences you can't get in Colorado. He laughed easily, paid with crisp $100 bills fresh from an ATM that still had the paper band. And when he slid the shot in front of me, he locked eyes and said, "To new beginnings, brother," like he already knew how the story ended. I drank. I woke up tasting chloroform and my own shit. The van ride was endless. It was maybe 6 hours, maybe 12. Time dissolves when your head is in a hood that reeks of someone else's vomit. My hands were zip-tied behind my back with plastic cuffs that cut circulation immediately. Every pothole slammed my face into the metal floor until my lips split and the taste of blood became constant. I counted 5 bodies bouncing with me, 2 girls sobbing in Ukrainian, one trying to comfort the other in whispers, a broad-shouldered guy with a broken nose who kept dry heaving into his lap, and a kid whispering the same Latin prayer over and over until someone kicked him silent with a boot. Eventually, the van stopped. Doors rolled open to floodlights that burned white after hours of darkness. Sub-Zero air knifed straight into my lungs. It was so cold it felt hot, like breathing fire made of ice. 6 men stood in white camouflage and black neoprene masks. They wore no insignia, no words at first. They just used rifle butts to the ribs until we stumbled out into snow up to our shins, the kind of snow that hasn't been plowed since October and crunches like broken glass. They marched us single file into a concrete barn that stank of diesel, piss, old blood, and something sweeter. It was rot, maybe, or fear that's had time to settle. The floor was stained black in patches big enough to lie down in, edges flaking like old scabs. On the far wall, red spray paint in Cyrillic and English, letters dripping like they were fresh. 30 minutes is all you get. They cut the zip ties with knives that glinted under the fluorescence, then ordered strip in accented English. I hesitated 2 seconds. The nearest guard smashed the butt of his AK into my kidney. The pain was immediate and total, like someone poured molten lead into my spine. I dropped, gasping, and peeled off every layer while they hosed us with water straight from a frozen pond. The water was so cold it felt like acid, raising instant white welts on skin. The shock was so violent, I pissed myself involuntarily. The stream froze to my leg before it hit the ground, a yellow icicle that shattered when I moved. They herded us naked into dog kennels, waist-high chain link bolted to concrete. Floor scattered with frozen straw, rat droppings, and old shit that smelled like death left out to cure. My cage was next to the Ukrainian girl who still had fight in her eyes, the one with the crescent scar. She met my gaze and nodded once, like we were already allies, like she decided we were getting out together. I nodded back and immediately threw up bile that steamed in the cold. That night, they slid metal bowls through the bars, raw horse meat swimming in congealed blood, chunks of gristle and yellow fat floating like islands, and a plastic cup of vodka, each that smelled like hospital disinfectant. The broad-shouldered guy with the broken nose, his name was Bartek. I learned later when he muttered it through swollen lips, refused. They held him down and poured it down his throat until he choked. Vodka and blood bubbled from his nose as he drowned on it. The Romanian kid ate everything, licking the bowl clean with a dog-like desperation. The Ukrainian girl ate too, slow and deliberate, never breaking eye contact with the guards, chewing each bite 32 times like it was a promise. I forced half the meat down and kept it this time, gagging on the metallic taste, but knowing I'd need the calories. At 4:17, the floodlights snapped on like a prison break, in reverse. A calm voice came over the loudspeaker, perfect English, with a faint Moscow accent that curled the edges of every word. Good morning, livestock. 30-minute head start begins when these doors open. Run west. The river is 19 kilometers. Reach it before the clients finish breakfast, and you win freedom. If the dogs find you first, try to die quietly. The microphones pick up everything, and the clients hate screamers. The kennel doors clanged open simultaneously. We ran. I have never felt cold like that. It was minus 23 Celsius. No wind chill factored in yet. The air itself was a blade, slicing into lungs with every breath, crystallizing snot in my nostrils, turning tears to ice on my cheeks before they could fall. My bare feet hit the snow, and the pain was so instant and total I almost fell. Nerves screamed as skin flash froze. Blood welled between my toes on the second step, froze on the third, and became red icicles by the 10th that snapped off and left raw stumps. The 5 of us sprinted in a loose knot at first. Pure panic momentum, breath coming in white plumes that hung in the air like ghosts. Bartek, the Polish guy, was built like a bear and took the lead, roaring something that sounded like a battle cry from another century. The Ukrainian girls stayed together, holding hands, purple streaks helping crescent scar when she slipped. Andrei, the Romanian kid, was right behind me, praying again between sobs, rosary beads clicking against his teeth. We crashed through pine trees loaded with snow. Branches whipped our faces, our genitals, our nipples, until they split and bled warm for one heartbeat before freezing. The forest floor was a minefield of hidden roots and rocks under the powder, each footfall a gamble. I stepped on something sharp, bone, glass, an old bear trap half buried, and felt it punch up between my toes, lodging there like a splinter of fire. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. At minute 8, we hit the first clearing. Moonlight turned everything silver, the snow glowing like a blank screen waiting for blood. That's when Bartek decided he wasn't running anymore. He skidded to a halt, chest heaving frost, and screamed back toward the barn. Come on then, you Russian cunts. I'll fuck your mothers. He didn't see the drone until its spotlight pinned him. It was matte black, silent until the last second. Then the rotor screamed like tearing metal. A red laser danced across his chest, steady as a heartbeat. The first shot was suppressed and took him high in the shoulder, spinning him half around. He roared, kept standing, blood already freezing into rubies on his skin. The second shot punched through his throat with a wet pop. Blood jetted black in the moonlight, steaming as it hit snow. He dropped to his knees, trying to hold the wound closed with both hands, eyes wide and surprised, like a child who discovered bleeding is real. The drone hovered, filming in 4K. The girls sprinted past him without slowing. I followed, tasting his blood in the air. Behind us, the dogs started barking. They were deep, eager sounds that carried for kilometers. The sound of something ancient waking up hungry. Minute 12. The trees thinned into a ravine maybe 4 meters deep, walls crusted with ice that gleamed like quartz. I jumped without thinking. I landed badly. Ankle rolled, felt the ligaments tear like wet paper ripping in slow motion. Pain flared white-hot, but adrenaline swallowed it whole. I limped down the slope on all fours, palms and knees shredded by ice-crusted rocks that left red commas in the snow. At the bottom was a half-frozen stream, black water moving sluggishly under shelves of ice thick as windows. The Ukrainian girl with the crescent scar, Olena, I'd learn later, was already wading in up to her waist, teeth chattering so hard I heard them clicking from 10 meters away like castanets. She was smart. Water kills scent. I followed. The cold was beyond description. It felt like my legs were being flayed with razors made of liquid nitrogen, skin tightening until it split in long white lines. My testicles contracted so violently I thought they'd rupture and crawl up inside me forever. I forced myself forward, breaking ice with my forearms until the skin split and blood trailed pink ribbons behind me that froze into delicate red lace. Durant was weak, but it still tried to drag me under the ice shelves, whispering promises of sleep. I stayed in up to my chest for maybe 4 minutes. It was long enough for the dogs to lose us, short enough that I didn't die right there, though part of me wanted to. When I crawled out the other side, my legs wouldn't work. They were purple, alien, numb logs marbled with black where frostbite had already started its work. I had to drag myself up the bank by my fingernails, leaving 10 bloody crescents in the snow. That's when I found Andre again. He'd tried to hide under a fallen pine instead of crossing the water, curled fetal with snow drifting over him like a blanket. Frostbite had already turned his lips blue and his fingers black at the tips, the skin splitting to reveal yellow fat beneath. He looked at me with huge, wet eyes and whispered "Mama" over and over, the same word in every language he knew. The drone found us again. The same red dot now danced between our faces like it was choosing dessert. We split. He went left, I went right. I heard the single shot a minute later, then silence so complete I could hear snowflakes landing. Minute 25. I was alone, hypothermic, bleeding from a dozen places, ankles swollen to twice its size and turning the color of rotten plums. The sky was starting to pale in the east, a sickly gray that promised no warmth. I could hear snowmobiles now. They were high-pitched, 2-stroke snarls, echoing through the valley like hornets trapped in a jar. I collapsed behind a deadfall and tried to think through the fog in my skull. I was naked. I had no weapons. I had one fucked ankle. Then I saw the boot prints. There was a single set. They came from the north. They were deep, purposeful. Someone was walking, not running, leaving neat oval depressions filled with blood from my own trail. I followed them on my belly until I saw him. He was maybe 50 meters away, moving parallel to my position. He was tall, expensive white Gore-Tex from head to toe that cost more than my annual salary. balaclava, night vision goggles flipped up now that dawn was coming, showing pale blue eyes and the kind of tan you get on yachts. He had an AR-10 with a fat suppressor longer than my forearm. He had a GoPro on a chest mount blinking red. He was humming Sweet Home Alabama under his breath, casual as a Sunday hiker, like he was out for grouse instead of people. He stopped. He knelt. He touched my bloody footprint with a gloved finger, brought it to his nose like wine inhaled deep. He smiled. I saw perfect American teeth. I looked around for anything. I found a chunk of basalt, half buried in the snow, about the size of a softball, sharp on one edge, like God had left it there for me. My hands were so numb, I had to pry it out with my teeth, splitting lips that had already frozen and thawed too many times. Blood filled my mouth, hot and metallic, the first warm thing in hours. He started walking straight toward my hiding spot, humming louder now, almost cheerful. I waited until he was 8 meters away. Then I stood up and charged. He was good. The rifle was already coming up smooth, muscle memory from whatever private security firm trained rich boys to kill. But surprise bought me 2 seconds. I screamed something primal. Maybe my daughter's name, maybe just noise, and swung the rock two-handed like an axe. It caught him just above the left ear with a sound like a coconut splitting. The impact jarred my arms to the elbows, sent shockwaves up to my teeth. His goggles shattered. One lens stayed embedded in his cheek, like a monocle made of blood. He staggered sideways, blood pouring bright red down the white suit, already freezing into rubies. I hit him again before he could recover. The second blow caved a temporal bone with a wet crunch I felt in my bones. He dropped the rifle and fell to his knees, making a sound like a confused child. I didn't stop. The third blow took out most of his front teeth in a spray of ivory chips. The fourth turned the left side of his skull into red oatmeal mixed with gray curls. His body kept trying to stand even after the brain was mush. It was muscle memory, or whatever the fuck. So I hit him twice more, until he finally flopped face down and stayed there, one arm twitching like it still wanted to wave. Steam rose from the ruins of his head in delicate pink curls. The blood was so hot it melted straight down into the snow, forming a crimson crater that hissed and popped. I stood over him, panting white plumes, covered in his gore that froze to me in seconds like armor. My hands wouldn't open. The rock was frozen to my palms by blood and snot and tears. I took everything useful, coat, too big, soaked with blood but lined with thinsulate that trapped warmth like a miracle. Pants. I had to cut the dead man's legs off at the knees with his own K-bar because rigor was already setting in and his joints wouldn't bend. Boots, size 12. I'm a 10, but stuffed with his cashmere socks they almost fit. Balaclava reeking of his cologne, something expensive and oceanic. And brains. The AR-10 with 5 rounds left in the mag and a cheek weld still warm from his face, and the GoPro still recording, red light blinking like an accusatory eye. I left him naked except for socks. His dick had shriveled to nothing in the cold, a pale grub against the snow. I pissed on his corpse because why the fuck not? The stream steamed where it hit his back, then froze into yellow crystals. The snowmobiles were closer now. Engines rose and fell like wolves testing the wind. I limped west again. An hour later, the sun finally broke the horizon. It was weak, orange, useless, the kind of winter sun that gives light but no heat. The temperature actually dropped a degree when the wind picked up, knifing through gaps in the borrowed Gore-Tex. I was delirious by then. I was talking to myself in 3 languages. That's when the second group found me. There were 3 clients on skis, expensive Salomon boots and carbon poles, 2 handlers with leashed Caucasian shepherds the size of ponies. Those animals were bred in the Caucasus Mountains to kill wolves, tongues lolling pink in the cold. They spread out in a loose arc when they saw me. They saw me covered in dried blood, wearing a dead man's clothes 2 sizes too big and stiff with frozen gore, carrying his rifle like I knew how to use it, which I didn't, not really, but the weight felt righteous. The dogs hit first. They were massive white blurs exploding from the tree line, chains snapping as handlers released them with a single word in Russian. I shot the lead shepherd center mass at 15 meters. The round entered just behind the shoulder and exited through the ribs in a spray of bone fragments and lung confetti. An AR-10 round does not leave much dog. It rolled, kicking, screaming, a sound I'll hear on my deathbed. It was a high, almost human keen. It sprayed blood like a fire hose across pristine snow. The handler, young guy, maybe 25, acne scars on cheeks, dropped to his knees in the snow, screaming Raider, Raider, while trying to stuff intestines back into the dog with bare hands that steamed in the cold. I put the second round through his open mouth. The exit wound took off the back of his skull in a pink cloud that hung in the air like cotton candy before drifting down. The clients panicked. Skier 1 tried to pole away like this was the bunny slope at Aspen, poles digging frantic furrows. I shot him twice in the back. Both rounds tumbled through the down jacket and exited through his sternum in red blossoms. He pitched forward and planted 10 meters on his face before stopping, one ski still attached and twitching. Skier 2 dropped his rifle and threw his hands up, palms pink and soft. He had an American accent, East Coast money, the kind of voice that orders bottle service. Please, I have kids. This was my first time. I swear to God. I limped up until the muzzle was under his chin, pressing hard enough to tilt his head back. His balaclava was soaked with snot and tears, eyes bloodshot from altitude or terror. So did the Ukrainian girls, I croak. My voice sounded like a rusted hinge, gravel scraped over glass. He started babbling about money, private jets, a foundation for orphaned whatever, his watch probably worth more than my apartment. I pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. For one heartbeat, we both just stared. It was the universal sound of fate laughing. Then he laughed. It was this high, broken hyena sound. He lunged for the rifle. We went down in a tangle of limbs and expensive fabric. He was younger, warmer, fed on steak and steroids. His fists hammered my face like pistons. Nose cartilage collapsed with a wet crunch. Teeth sheared off at the gum line and rattled down my throat. Orbital bone cracked like eggshell. Blood filled my mouth until I was drowning in it. Copper and salt and the taste of my own ending. I got my thumb into his left eye and pushed until I felt the soft pop and warm jelly coat my wrist like raw egg. He screamed into my face, breath hot and sour with fear sweat. I found the K-bar on his belt with my free hand. It was carbon steel, razor sharp, the kind of knife that costs more than most people make in a week. I yanked it out and opened him from sternum to pelvis in one sawing motion that grated over ribs. Loops of intestines slithered out, steaming, purple and glistening, smelling of shit and breakfast. He tried to stuff them back in the same way the handler had with his dog, hands slick and shaking. I rolled away and watched him die slow, knees drawn up to his chest, whimpering for his mother in Connecticut. Voice getting smaller and smaller until the snow swallowed it. The last skier never moved. The second shepherd had gone for his throat while I was busy, tearing it out in one efficient shake. The man lay on his back, staring at the sky with eyes already glazing, blood pumping in rhythmic spurts that slowed to a trickle. The dog was eating his face with wet, contented growls, tearing strips of cheek. I took the GPS unit off the dead handler. It was military grade, still warm from his pocket. I took a satellite phone that actually had bars for the first time in days. Extra mags, heavy with brass promises, a vacuum-sealed pack of energy gels that tasted like childhood birthday parties, and a flask of something that burned like battery acid but warmed me from the inside for the first time. Then I walked. I walked until my ruined feet left bloody prints inside the two big boots that squelched with every step. I walked until the sun was high and mocking, and the cold came back twice as hard when shadows lengthened. I walked until I found the river. It was wide, black, frozen solid except for a smoking lead in the center where the current was too fast to ice over, steam rising in delicate curls like breath from a dragon's nostril. I crossed on the ice shelf, crawling the last 50 meters when it started cracking under my weight with sounds like gunshots, praying in languages I didn't know. On the far side was Lithuania. It was freedom. It was whatever that word means now, when every mirror shows a monster. Border Patrol found me 3 days later, curled around a dead fire that never caught, babbling in Polish about dogs and rocks, and a girl with a crescent scar. They airlifted me to Vilnius in a helicopter that sounded like angels with rotor blades. Surgeons took 8 toes, half my left foot, most of my nose, rebuilt later with cartilage from my ear, which they also took, both ears entirely, and 3 fingers that had gone black while I slept, the skin splitting like overripe fruit to reveal bone beneath. The frostbite lines look like tribal tattoos now, purple-black ladders climbing my limbs. Interpol recovered the GoPro card from the first client's shattered helmet mount. There were 43 minutes of footage, including me bashing his skull in from his own point of view, the camera tilting crazily as the rock descends, then blackness punctuated by wet thuds, then turning the camera to my ruined face and smiling with bloody teeth before I walked off screen, leaving only the sound of my breathing and distant dogs. They showed it to me once in a dark room in The Hague, men in suits who wouldn't meet my eyes. I watched myself kill 4 men, and I felt nothing. There was no pride. There was no guilt. There was just the cold, settled in my bones like it plans to stay. The barn was torched the day after I escaped. Bodies dissolved in barrels of acid that hissed and bubbled for days. The organizers vanished like smoke, but the client list was on an encrypted drive in the satellite phone. They were names you would recognize from Forbes covers, from royal wedding photos, from Senate hearings. There was a certain royal who abdicated last year for personal reasons. Some of them are already dead by suicide. They jumped from balconies they couldn't reach, overdosed on drugs they never used, hanged themselves with belts that weren't in the room. The rest wake up sweating every night, wondering if the man with no nose and no toes is outside their window holding a rock. I'm posting this because the hunts haven't stopped. They just moved. There is a new forest. There is new prey. It is the same 30 minutes. If you're ever in Eastern Europe and a rich American in a Canada Goose offers you a drink, smash the glass in his face and run. If you wake up naked with 30 minutes on the clock, remember 3 things. Water kills scent. Rich men have soft skulls. West, always west. Follow the river. To the Ukrainian girl with the crescent scar who ate the horse meat and ran east. I looked for you on the Lithuanian side. I'm sorry. I hope the river took you somewhere kinder. To the ones who paid but never got their turn that day. I still have the K-bar. I sharpened it with a ceramic rod until it cuts paper in midair. I sleep with it under my pillow, wrapped in the American's balaclava that still smells faintly of his cologne. See you in the snow. This is the Curator. I hope you've enjoyed today's scary story. Until next time,